there are going to be failures over and over and over and over again. It's a total cliche, but it's true. It's like you learn from your failures.
Yeah.
It's the only way.
Yeah.
And you learn what it feels like to fail, and that's okay. You keep a positive outlook on your failures. The longer you do the thing that you love and you kind of like go and stand out there on the limb, the more comfortable you get being out there on the limb. The more comfortable you get with being in a kind of harrowing situation, because you make it through enough of those harrowing situations and you realize that even if the bottom does drop out, that you'll figure it out somehow.
Welcome to Reaching Out. I'm your host, Zack Carter. Please join me as I speak with a diverse group of people to find out their thoughts on religion, politics, and culture.
Well, welcome everyone to Reaching Out with Zack Carter. I'm your host, Zack Carter. This week we have an individual who is both smart, good-looking, talented, and we also have my brother in the room as well. Yes, my older brother, Justin Carter. The reason I wanted to bring him in today is he has a very interesting story. He does some very, very cool things up in New York City that I thought that the audience might enjoy listening to. So before we get started, could you tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do?
I'm your brother.
You're my brother, yes.
Not as handsome or funny as my younger brother, Zack. And that's essentially it.
That's all anyone needs to know.
I grew up in Danville, Virginia, and Raleigh, North Carolina, and moved to New York when I was 18, and have spent now over half of my life there because I'm 37.
There it is.
But yeah, I'm a musician. I'm a DJ. I throw a party series in New York called Mr. Saturday Night. We also have a party called Mr. Sunday that's kind of a spin-off. And we run a record label called Mr. Saturday Night Records, and just opened a venue, like a year-round venue called Nowadays. We had it as a temporary, like seasonal venue for a few summers, but now, as of December, it's fully functioning, open most days of the week. Yeah.
And you also you do some traveling around the world DJing as well. I don't know if you said that already.
Yeah. I didn't say that, but yeah, as a DJ, I do tour. As well. Yeah.
So pretty much the coolest job ever.
It's a pretty cool job.
It's pretty cool.
I'm not going to be like, well, it's hard. I mean, there are things that are hard about it. There are things that are hard about anything. But yes, going and like being asked to play records for people in foreign lands is awesome.
There's worse ways to spend your evenings.
Totally.
Yeah. So is that what you wanted to do growing up, or did it just kind of happen? What's the story?
I had no concept of like what a DJ was. Honestly, until I was in my early 20s, probably around like 23 was when it kind of dawned on me. When I moved to New York, I started going to parties, which is like one of the things that you do, or one of the things that I did, certainly. When I got to New York, it's just like kind of going out and experiencing all the different parts of culture in New York. A big part of the culture there is nightlife. And I went to lots of different kinds of parties. And there was one party that I was really drawn to. It was called Body and Soul. And Body and Soul was really interesting because it was a Sunday afternoon evening party. So it would start around like 5 or 6 o'clock, and it would go until I think 11 o'clock at night. And but I mean, I've come to understand like Body and Soul's importance in like the history of New York nightlife. But at the time, I knew nothing about anything.
Yeah. And
to me, it was just this really fun place to go and dance, and all different kinds of people were there. It was, I had this memory that's just like seared into my brain and will be there forever of being on the dance floor, 18-year-old kid from the South who's been in New York for probably like a month or two. And I am surrounded by, like a guy who's probably like in his 50s, clearly like a guy from Chelsea who's gay, with his mom who's like probably in her 70s or even early 80s, and they're dancing together. And then there's like a whole contingent of like Black and Puerto Rican dancers that would come down. There's me. I mean, people of like all stripes there, and the music was amazing, and it was just a really big, like I was like this like unbelievably freeing experience, and this kind of like to me like the utopia that New York could be was this party. But anyway, I was going to this party, and there I've now come to know one of the DJs that played at that party like fairly well, and he's played at a couple of my parties, and we've gone out like record shopping together and talk on the phone every now and then. But I had no concept of like a DJ in the DJ booth doing anything really. I was just like, oh, this is a fun thing that happens. It wasn't until 4 or 5 years later that I actually understood like, oh, there's a DJ that's like putting records on and playing and like combining them in a certain way to make people dance. So did I think about this when I was young? Like this is what I thought I was going to be doing? No. I always loved music, but I grew up as a musician, like playing guitar. Our dad is a great musician. He's been playing guitar for 50 years, I think now. Something like
80 years, I think.
80, yes. That's for you, Dad. That one's just for you. So I grew up as a music lover, and I think being a DJ is like a natural thing for me because I always love music, always buying music, listening to it. I love to share it with people. Yeah, and that's essentially what DJing is. It's like sharing music with people, like in a particular kind of environment, but still sharing music. It's really exciting.
That's pretty cool. And could you describe for us what your parties look like? So you kind of talked about the inspiration of why you got into it. What exactly do your parties look like? I know I've been to a few, but I know the audience would love to hear kind of what you do.
Well, they're different depending on whether it's Mr. Saturday Night and Mr. Sunday.
They do have different vibes,
Mr. Sunday, because that's the one that is more universal. I mean, I don't think it's a coincidence that all these different kinds of people were showing up at that party that I was talking to before. Part of it because of the party's history, but part of it just because you do something on a Sunday afternoon and it's much more accessible to a lot of different kinds of people. Yeah. Right. So at Mr. Sunday, the day often begins with families and like small kids. Like my kid, who's 2, is often there at the beginning of the party and running around and like dancing on the dance floor to get things started off, but also with people who are like real dancers that have showed up to dance. And so it's a really interesting kind of vibe that you've got kids and like real adult dancers that are there together enjoying themselves. There are definitely people who are like young, new to nightlife, maybe are like still out from the night before and have come.
They're still awake?
Yeah. I mean, that's a thing, right? Like,
wow. I couldn't imagine. I hate staying up all night, and so I can't imagine staying up all night because your parties start in the afternoon.
Right, yeah. This is not like a giant contingent of
There's just a few.
That's like part of nightlife in New York is people who are like, they'll go out at like 4 o'clock in the morning, right? And so, some folks who like still going, and then, people who maybe used to go out late at night, but now like don't as much, but they still love music. They'll come. Yeah. Like basically in short, wide array of people, ages, are the party's like pretty balanced between, men and women. Yeah. Which is really nice. It doesn't feel like dominated by a bunch of dudes. Which is great.
What and how many people usually show up on average?
I'd say about this past summer, and it changes from year to year. Yeah, I think this past summer we were at about 950 people through the course of the day coming to Mr. Sunday. Mr. Saturday Night's less people.
Yeah, and I know that I think I've told you this before, but I was in New Orleans hanging out in a hostel, and I met this guy, and we were just kind of hanging out and going to restaurants. And he said he was living in New York at the moment, and I was like, oh, you should check out one of my brother's parties. And he was like, what's it called? And I was like, Mr. Saturday Night. He's like, oh yeah, I've been to Mr. Saturday Night. And so like this dude in New Orleans that was Danish that happened to be living in New York knew you and knew your parties. So I thought that was pretty cool. What do you you started with parties, but you kind of talked about at the beginning that it's kind of morphed into a lot of different ventures and different. So you have a record label, is what you said, and you're traveling, and you have a couple parties, and now you have a venue. How did that come across? Was it just a natural evolution, or?
Yeah. So I should say that I do all of this with a partner.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. My partner is Eamon Harkin, and he's from Northern Ireland, and he moved to New York, I think 5 years after me. I think he moved in like 2003 or 2004, something like that. And so we both were DJing around New York for a long time, figuring out things. And at a certain point, we realized, we'd done a couple of things together, and we realized we both saw things in the same way, that we wanted to not just sit. There's this thing that happens, and I think this happens in like kind of all scenes, where you see people who are kind of in a circuit playing each other's parties in the world of New York nightlife. This is the way it happens, but I'm sure this happens in like with bands and comedians and all kinds of things, right? There's this like circuit where like people are playing each other's parties, and there's a crew that kind of shows up, and they go to all different things.
Yeah.
But people start to age out of those crews, and you see there not really being a future there. And Eamon and I were really interested in how to build something that was not just for a clique, that was for the long term, something where we would hopefully have a career, and where we would build up a community of people around something that we cared about, that would transcend a clique, right? And so that was the wavelength that we were on, and we started to work together towards that. And so the first iteration of that was Mr. Saturday Night.
Yeah.
And then came Mr. Sunday. And after we had done that for a couple of years and it became solid, felt like there's a good foundation, and we didn't have to spend like all of our energy figuring out how we're going to like set up the party and break it down and promote it. We kind of like knew what we were doing there. Then a natural progression was, well, let's start a label, because by this time we'd started to meet people who were making music that were coming to the party. And so they were sending us music, and we thought, oh, there's some really good stuff here. Let's put out some records of people who were surrounding the party. So that's how the label started. And the whole time we're doing the party still, and the party becomes this community that we hoped it would be. It's becoming our careers, and there becomes this new problem of consistency. Yeah. Right. So we've got this party, Mr. Sunday specifically, where lots of people are coming every single week during the summer, but it's New York. New York real estate is insane. Yeah. Trying to find like an outdoor space where we could consistently be able to do our party for a very long time was really, really difficult. The only commitment we could ever get from any landlord was one summer. They would never give us 2 summers. And so after having to move once, we were just like, okay, we can't put this whole thing at risk. We've got to go and find our own space. Yeah. It took a really, really long time. We started to search, I think, in 2013. Really? For the space. I think it was 2013 or 2014. And it took a while to actually find the place. Once we found the place, you got to do a whole back and forth with signing a lease, which is not just like, well, here's the lease, you sign it, it's done. Yeah. So it was like, I think, an almost year-long process to get the lease signed, going back and forth. And then when the lease is signed, then we had to build up the outdoor space. Then we opened that. Took a few years for us to get to the point where we could begin construction on the indoor space. And the indoor space just opened up a couple of months ago. Yeah. Right. So anyway, that's how that's how the venue came about, is us needing a home for these other things that we're doing. Now, that's not to say that the only thing that we do at this venue, in fact, it's funny, like as I say the word venue out loud, I realize how limiting that sounds. It makes it seem like we've got this place where like just parties happen or just concerts happen. But in fact, during the summer, 7 days a week, nowadays is open. It's kind of like a beer garden. Like, there's a bunch of picnic tables and trees. It kind of feels like a park.
Yeah,
we got
in
a
New
bar.
York, which is rare.
Yeah, it's super, super rare. There's nothing else really like it. So it's this place where you can go and like sit outside and eat some food and drink a beer or not a beer. You can drink like whatever you want.
Yeah, it almost feels like you're not in the city.
Right, exactly. Yeah, it's like on this like edge of it's like woods.
Yeah,
behind the woods, a train track. Behind that's a cemetery. So you really feel like you're like kind of out in the middle of nowhere. So that place is a place where there's people who live in that community and people from New York who are just trying to find a really interesting experience, unique experience. They'll come there, and we also do these really cool classes on Tuesday nights during the summer. We do a film series with the Documentary Center on Wednesday nights. We have people come in and play records, like people who play vinyl. We love vinyl.
Yeah,
we're collectors ourselves, so we like bring in friends who are collectors to kind of set the vibe on a Friday and Saturday night. And so it's like a well-rounded space. You can come just eat dinner if you want. You can come and like listen to people playing really cool records. It's not really a party, but just like interesting listening. Come have a class. Come watch a film. And then on Sundays we do our party outside. And then the indoors, which is just opened up, is similar. We got a kitchen. We got a full bar. We're open, at noon on a Saturday and noon on a Sunday. People to come down and like hang out. And we got a couple nice like hi-fi stereo systems in the bars. So again, like music is a really important part of it, but it's not like people are getting banged out at 2 o'clock on a Sunday afternoon. It's just like nice listening music like at somebody's house. So yeah, I mean, it's funny, you start something and it leads you to the next thing, and then that next thing becomes more than you thought it was. Yeah. Like for the label, going back to that, it's kind of another example of how we started the label because we were getting sent music by people who were in our scene. In the beginning, the label was a lot about people who we were meeting through the party directly. Yeah. And then eventually we're getting sent music from people all around the world, and we started to release music by people we never met before. Yeah. Right? And then eventually I released my own album on the label, which has like nothing to do with dance music and DJing at all.
Yeah. It's very different.
And
from that music,
Right. So you start one thing and then
it just kind of evolves and evolves.
You kind of we try to allow it to evolve into something that feels natural for us instead of just being like, okay, well, this thing is just
not suddenly like it's not suddenly you're doing something random that you're like. I was about to say clothing, but you guys do. I'm sure clothing is tied to the venue and the party, but like,
it's not like it's like a fashion brand.
Exactly.
We put our logo on a shirt.
You're not selling Tupperware. Like it's like Mr. Saturday Night Tupperware.
Maybe.
That's an idea. Hey, you're welcome. You're welcome for that. So one of the things I wanted to bring you in today to talk about is that a lot of people have ideas, they have passions, they have desires that they want to pursue, but then they, get stuck into a job, a 9-to-5, that they're like, I don't feel like this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And I kind of wanted to talk about, how you can begin pursuing the things that you find interesting, pursuing your dreams and hopes. And you've been able to find a way that at least the path didn't seem obvious initially, but then you just kind of fell into it almost, and then it was like, man, I need to take this and run with it. So, what do you wish someone would have told you before you started a business that would have been helpful for those that might someday want to start a business or who have already started one?
I don't know what to tell somebody who wants to start a business specifically.
Sure.
But I think what I can talk about that may be of some value to someone is the idea of like following your passion and letting that build into something.
Yeah. That'd be great.
I mean, one thing that I was fortunate with, we're both fortunate with, is that we have parents that are supportive of us. I think it's just been really nice to be able to say to our dad and to my mom as well, that I'm gonna be a DJ.
Yeah. And
instead of having a parent be like, I don't know if that's a good idea or not.
Yeah.
To have the parent be like, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
You should do that. You love that.
Yeah.
You should do that. Right.
Yeah.
That's really great.
That's definitely how I know for sure Dad is like. He's like, is that what you like doing? All right, well, I'm gonna do it.
Right. Exactly.
I could have said anything. He'd be like, just about anything, as long as it's not immoral, and he would have been like, yeah, go do it, yeah.
Right, yeah. But I guess that boils down to us given support that gives us confidence.
Yeah.
Right. Like we have a passion, and we have somebody who's in our corner who's saying, "Hey, yeah, you do that thing that you're passionate about. That's going to be good for you." And, for someone that doesn't have somebody in their corner cheerleading like that, you do want to surround yourself with people who will give you that, because not everybody's going to have a parent like ours that will do that, or parents in my case, that would encourage that. And so surround yourself with people who encourage you, have confidence that what you are passionate about is worth doing and worth pursuing. I don't want to sit here and say, if you follow your dreams, they will come true.
Yeah.
I'm like,
that might not be true.
I'm aware of the odds are stacked in my favor if they're stacked in anybody's favor to do well. I'm a white man. I was sent to a good university. I've always known that if the bottom dropped out for me, that the bottom dropping out for me equals I can go back home, and live in a place that's secure and supportive. Those things you don't even, those things that allow you to not even think about.
Yeah.
Peril.
Yeah.
Are really valuable when you're out there, trying to do your thing, right? Because the bottom dropping out for you just isn't that traumatic.
Yeah.
Right? It may be scary to you. Of course, I was worried about, I was in debt. I didn't make any money for probably 7 years or 8 years or something like that. I'd say I didn't make any money. I would put it together.
Yeah. Right.
But I was in debt for a long time. I'm still in debt. But now I have a handle on that. And it's what they call good debt.
Right. School debt.
Right. School debt, or I have a mortgage.
Mortgage. That kind of thing. So that debt's all right.
Yeah. But I think I don't want to take for granted that anyone can do it, because I think there's certainly people that have come from backgrounds that are much, much more difficult than mine, that have made incredible things happen.
Absolutely.
Their stories are the ones that are really inspiring.
Yeah.
But what I'll say is that, I always just, out of sheer stubbornness sometimes, I just wouldn't do anything that I didn't want to do.
Yeah.
That's not to say I wouldn't take a job for a month or two here and there that I just needed to make some money from, right? But I didn't put myself into a career that was counter to the things that I wanted to do. It was like it wouldn't work for me. Anytime that I was doing something that didn't feel right, it was my body rejected it. I just couldn't allow myself to do it, right?
Yeah.
So I would just move on and do the next thing. But yeah, I just always pursued things that interested me, and they kind of led from one piece to another. What I will say is that as you get further along, and you're growing what you love, you're growing the business that is your passion. is that you still always wonder when the bottom is going to drop out.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it seems crazy to me now that like I have this place where people can come and eat and drink and hang out, and I can throw parties there, have this label, have my own music career. I'm DJing. I'm just always waiting for the other shoe to drop and for the whole jig to be up.
Yeah.
Like just what's going to happen like next month where like all of a sudden like, like no one's going to care about my party anymore. And like something's going to happen to the venue and we'll like just run out of money. And like, it's always just like this thing where it's hanging out of your head where you're like, oh man, it's all going to fall apart.
Oh no.
Soon.
Yeah.
But I will say is, the longer you do the thing that you love and you kind of like go and stand out there on the limb, the more comfortable you get being out there on the limb. The more comfortable you get with being in kind of harrowing situation because you make it through enough of those harrowing situations and you realize that even if the bottom does drop out, that you'll figure it out somehow.
Yeah.
Like, I right now, we're at this point in our business where, we got delayed from opening. We had a pretty good like padding because we had a good summer this past summer.
Yeah.
We had a good padding to get through the new part of our business. You open up a business and you figure out what works and what doesn't work. And in the meantime, you lose money basically while that's happening. You're like trying everything. And it costs money to try stuff.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
So we're in this spot now because we got delayed that the entire pad that we had, or almost the entire pad that we had, is gone. And we're in this space where our business is losing money every single month. And now we're looking at the balance sheet. I'm like, I don't know how we're going to make it to the summer.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, but then we put our heads together and we're in the process right now of going out and trying to solve that problem.
Yeah.
I don't know how we're going to solve that problem. I got a bunch of phone calls this week trying to figure out how to solve that problem. But I'm not losing sleep over it.
Yeah.
Not because it's not stressful and not because I just feel like, oh, whatever, it'll happen. It's because I have I've been in situations like this enough times that I've realized that as long as I take it seriously and put my head together and my partner's doing the same thing, that it will work out.
Yeah.
We'll figure it out somehow. And if it doesn't work out, I'll like gather myself and I'll do another thing and it will be okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Totally. Yeah, and I definitely know what you mean in the sense of when you're saying you're trying this thing. This is what I'm doing with this podcast. Is I'm not on the ledge yet. I'm like walking to the ledge, trying to get more and more comfortable being out on the ledge and putting myself out there. And then also even what you're talking about with you spend money to try and figure things out, and sometimes those things don't work out. There's been a few things that have happened to me in this. It's like, wow, that just costed me $1,000. And you're like, all right, I guess I'm going to try something else. And you kind of lick your wounds real quick and you move forward and try to learn from it. And so, I think that'll talk to a lot of people pursuing their passions, because I think people need to hear that. That there's going to be obstacles.
There are going to be failures over and over and over and over again. And it's total cliche, but it's true. It's like you learn from your failures.
Yeah.
It's the only way.
Yeah.
And you learn what it feels like to fail, and that's okay. You keep a positive outlook on your failures, and you say, all right, well, I learned that I shouldn't do X, Y, Z, or that when I do X, Y, Z, I need to shore it up in this way.
Yeah.
You learn from it.
Yeah. You said you've been doing the party for 15 years, right?
No, I've been DJing for 15 years. Mr. Saturday Night started in January of 2009. And so, that's January. It's February 2018 now. So 9 years, right?
9 years.
That math?
think so. Is that math? So how do you? One of the things I've been impressed with is that you're doing all these things. Like I know you and your partner are about to head over to Australia to be there for a couple weeks to DJ a bunch of parties over in Australia.
Yeah, we're actually doing a Mr. Sunday. So we'll go over and we'll DJ just as a DJ duo. We'll play other people's parties.
Yeah.
It's very rare for us to go over and do our own party in a place. Mm-hmm. So we've only ever done Mr. Sunday outside of New York in London. Mm-hmm. And that was in a place where we had this guy who had worked at the party for a long time and in New York.
Yeah.
And he had moved to London and he kind of knew the party. Mm-hmm. So we were like, all right, this guy gets it. We can do Mr. Sunday there. Mm-hmm. So 3 years ago, we went to Australia and we played for these guys called Astral People. They arranged the tour for us. Mm-hmm. And they did an outdoor party. And there were some things that were not exactly the way we would do it, but we talked to them and they were like, oh, yeah, okay, that makes sense. And so we trust them enough to do the production in the way that we would do one of our own parties. So we're going to Australia, we're going to play at a festival, we're doing a few club gigs just as DJs, but then in Sydney we're doing our own Mr. Sunday in this big outdoor space in the downtown area. Yeah,
so you're doing all this stuff. That's awesome. How do you juggle? You're married and you have a 2-year-old. You're running parties, running a record label, making your own music, running a venue. How do you juggle all that stuff? Because I know there are a lot of people that are like, I'm already working a 40-hour job. I've had this idea that I've been wanting to work on, but I don't know how I do that in my family. So how have you been able to manage?
Well, I don't do all of it at once. Mm-hmm. Sometimes I do some of it poorly.
Okay.
I try not to, right? I try not to do that, but I will admit to failing sometimes. Sometimes it's just too much on the plate.
Yeah.
Right? I think the only way that it would really work, the only reason why it works now is because there's a good team. The venue has got some amazing people who own it as much as we do. And without them, it would be overwhelming because running a place like nowadays, mm-hmm. It's outdoors, it's indoors, there's food, there's drinks, there's dancing. We do this listening session called Planetarium. There's the classes. There's all these different kinds of things.
Yeah.
It takes somebody to be there almost all the time to just hold it together. The ceiling's leaking, the cleaner didn't show up. Somebody's got to take reservations. Like if it was just Eamon and me, it wouldn't happen.
Yeah.
Right. Like even if we weren't doing any of the other things. And so yeah, building a team around what we've done is essential. Going back to the parties, like the first big step that we took from doing parties to like starting another thing was the label. Mm-hmm. When we decided to do that, we had a team in place that would set the sound system up, that would run the bar. So we started to have to spend less time doing the party organization. And the first time we ever threw a party in a loft space, which is like kind of like the way we did the parties for a really long time. Eamon and I rented a van, went to the liquor store, bought all of the booze ourselves, brought it to the venue, up the stairs ourselves. We hired the bartenders. They came at an hour before and they set up the bar. We then went back to our storage space, picked up our sound system, brought it to the venue, brought it upstairs, set the sound system up. Then I think I went and picked up our guest DJ from the airport and brought that person back and brought them to the venue.
Yeah.
When the door person arrived, I had to have like a bank. So I had to have gone to the bank the day before and gotten the change in the right denominations.
Yeah.
We set up all the ticketing. We did everything that happened. And then somehow we played.
Yeah.
Somehow we DJed, which that was just insane. Trying to go from party organizer mode into creative performance mode.
Yeah.
That was really difficult.
Yeah.
It did not work most of the time.
Oh, yeah.
It was really hard. Yeah. But anyway.
I remember back in the day when you were doing all that stuff and showing up to some of those parties. It felt like, you guys were in control and it felt like you guys knew what you were doing.
Well, at the point where you came, I'm pretty sure we like had a team already, right? Like we were probably still showing up early to just keep our eyes on everything that was going on. Because when we were doing stuff in a lot of different places, we felt like certainly the first and second time we would do a party in that place, but we really needed to be there to make sure like the speakers were in the right place.
Yeah,
because we think a lot about these little things in the room where we're doing parties, like what makes it feel right. But yeah, after you have a good team surrounding you, you can be like, okay, I know that the speaker's going to be in the right place, the bar's going to be run correctly, security's going to do the right thing, like all that stuff is rolling.
Yeah,
I can focus my mind on something else. So that's it. It's like, once things get put to a point where you feel like you can just trust it to roll without you having to like oversee every little detail that's happening, you can go on and you can move to do other things.
Yeah.
So that's been a big lesson for me, like learning to let go of certain things.
And delegate.
Yeah, because I think this is probably the way a lot of creative people feel. I feel like the thing that makes my thing good is my attention to detail. And the idea of stepping away from that and letting somebody else do that, knowing for sure that whoever else is doing it is going to do it in a different way than you do. You hope you've imparted enough of your vision that they will share the same goal with you, and that the end result will still be a really positive one, and maybe better than if you're handling it all yourself.
Yeah.
But it's a really, really difficult thing to learn to let go. It's a lesson that I'm having to relearn all the time.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you one more question about this, and then we're going to move on to the bonus interview section, which is the questions that are supposed to be a little fun and a bit more playful.
Okay.
So, so what would be the first steps you would encourage someone to take as they begin pursuing the idea that they have for a business, for music, for whatever it is that they're...
This is very vague, I think, but I can't think of a more simple way to put it. Do the thing that excites you. Do something that is fun for you to do. In our case, it was doing something that was really fun for us that... I'm saying our case and talking about Mr. Saturday Night, but I could actually take that back and just be really personal about it. I think what I've always tried to do is look at what was going on around me and say, I've got this idea and I really want to see this thing out there that I don't see happening otherwise. And I think it's do something that is fun for you that you don't feel like is being done elsewhere. And that will lead to being so definitive. It will lead to success.
It will lead to... You'll be motivational speaker with Mr. Saturday Motivation.
Right. Totally.
This is another offshoot that we'll include in your business beside the Tupperware.
At the very least, you'll be happy with the thing that you've done because you'll be pursuing something that you love.
Yeah.
And that's the most important thing of all. Whether your thing becomes huge and you're able to quit your day job or not, you'll still be devoting your time to something that you care about, right? I know that there are plenty of people out there who start a business just to make money. That's never really made sense to me because money is only a tool to get things that you want.
Yeah.
Right? So money is the goal, and what's really the goal?
That's good.
I think do something that brings you joy in the act of doing it, and you've already won.
Yeah.
Because you're just doing something that's fun.
That's real good. That's real good. I'm happy to end the major interview on that note. That's good. Thanks for that. That's a good place to end. Bonus interview. Question number 1. Here it comes. What kids movie scared you at the time that looking back isn't scary anymore to you?
Ghostbusters.
Ghostbusters scared you, yeah?
Yeah, well, there was this one scene in Ghostbusters where my mom had a friend who had a kid, and whenever I would go over to the house, me and the kid would go down to the basement, and they had Ghostbusters video, and we would put it in every time. Let's watch Ghostbusters. And we would put it in, and then the very first scene was in the library when the ghosts turned. We would see them like, and we would turn it off. And it happened over and over and over and over again. And yeah, looking back on it, that's not scary at all.
Yeah. I mean, that's amazing. I remember there's 2 movies in particular I remember that just freaked me out. I was over at a friend's house, and we were allowed to stay up late and just had the TV running. I remember waking up and Planet of the Apes was on.
Oh yeah, well that is
during
really
like this.
freaky.
Yeah, it's during the scene where there was just a scene where these humans are behind these bars, and you have these apes that have imprisoned these humans, and it scared the mess out of me when I was like 9 or 10. And then I think, did you ever see the Ernest movies?
Yeah,
There's Ernest Halloween, and like the bad guy in Ernest Halloween freaked me out. What's funny that you said Ghostbusters is like Ghostbusters is a comedy,
right? Yeah.
And like Ernest versus Halloween or whatever is
It was like a troll, right?
Yeah, it was a troll, and it scared me.
I was a big Ernest fan.
Were you?
Yeah,
that's
huge.
perfect. So I think they like abducted the kids or something, and they like put them in a tree or something.
And Ernest had the way to like stop the troll was with it was like an old ancient writing.
Okay.
And there was it was like M-I-blank-K. It was like yeah.
Amazing.
Real comedy. Jim Varney, one of the greats.
One of the greats. All right, question number 2. What kind of cult would you like to start if you could start one?
A cult where people don't use cell phones.
Where
people just don't use the internet at all.
Yeah, that's great.
There's like a really nice library. I think people will be talking to each other more. That's the cult that I want to start.
That's great. That's a great cult. I have the flip phone, so I've already started. I've already started moving that direction. This is See, people make fun of me initially, and then when they think about it for a minute, they're like, "Huh, maybe he's onto something." I'm gonna start the trend.
You know that there's this new phone. I can't remember the name of it, but it's like a smartphone detox phone.
Okay.
It's basically just like a Nokia, like a crappy Nokia phone.
Okay.
But it costs $300. It comes with a book.
You can get the price of a smartphone with the usage of a flip phone.
And the phone only works on like the 2G network, which means you can only use it if you have T-Mobile or something like that. It's totally insane. It's like got a nice design. Of course, it's like Danish.
Yeah.
And like they hired this really nice sound designer so that like the sound of birds chirping comes out of your phone when it rings. But it's still like T9 texting.
Yeah. I still use T9 to this day.
Wow.
Everyone sends me emojis, and it just comes in like these 2 little boxes, or it comes as question marks. I'm like, I'll just take it as a smiley and move on. So, all right, question number 3. What would be the worst buy one, get one free sale of all time? I'll give you mine if you want to know.
Yeah.
Caskets.
I was thinking about that.
Yeah. No, I stole it.
I mean, not caskets, but just something where you're like, I don't want that thing. I don't want that. I was thinking poison. You might use poison for something else.
You're watching a lot of Game of Thrones. You're like, buy one, get one free poison sale. Cersei buys a few of them.
Yeah. Man, that lady. Wow. Pass.
pass. Fair enough. Fair enough. We'll take poison if you can't come up with one. That's fine. That's fine. What's the weirdest thing a guest has done at your house, or you have done in someone else's house? It's a tough question.
It is, because I don't feel like I've had many guests. New York is your apartment is very small in New York.
It is.
You don't have that many guests.
Have you done anything weird you could even tell us, when I got this question, I was thinking you would go with the story of you and your wife before you were married on it wasn't honeymoon. It was right before you got, or was it your honeymoon? No. Yeah, like with the fire logs.
That was at a hotel, though.
It's a hotel. We'll count it. Okay. If you want to tell that story.
Right. Well, thanks. Yeah. Well, on the night that we got engaged, it was this really beautiful old inn from, I think, like pre-1776. Thing's been there for a long time. It's in Massachusetts. And so we got engaged. It's a beautiful restaurant. It's lit only by candles. And there's a room upstairs, so I guess a nice room with a fireplace. And my wife, like many other wives, gets cold a lot.
Yeah.
And so up in the room next to the fireplace is a stack of logs, and it says, one log at a time. And I am thinking, this is people who know how to make a fire. I know how to make a fire. I'm going to use all the logs. So I put all the logs in the fireplace. And it's warm, and it's cooking, feeling good. My wife's in the bathtub. I'm saying my wife at this point. She's my
fiance.
She's my fiance, of an hour. And she's in the bathtub, and we're reading a book or something like that. And I look over, and the flames are getting kind of high, and they start to get really, really high, and they start to whip up in front of the fireplace, and they start to burn the side of the wall. So Geraldine in the bathtub, I'm like, Geraldine, did you gotta unlock the door, you gotta unlock the door. She's like, runs, unlocks the door. I go in the bathtub, I get the trash can, dump out whatever's in the trash can, fill it up with water from the bathtub, and throw it onto the fire to put the fire out. And then there's a black stain up the side of the wall. And so for the next 3 hours, we're trying to wash off the wall. I go out in the hallway, break into the maid's closet, steal a bunch of cleaning materials. So I think we end up sleeping for 2 hours. Oh, it's cold. We have to open up the window to air out the room. So now my whole idea of keeping my fiance safe and warm, just freezing in the room. And
she's wet from the shower.
That's terrible. Then the next morning we have to wake up extra early to try to clean some more. So we sleep for 2 hours or something like that, or 3 hours. We clean everything up, and actually it's looking pretty good. Mm-hmm. And then we have to try to sneak out of the hotel without them realizing what we've done. So I take a giant trash bag and take all of the burned logs that are wet and put them into the trash bag and put it into our suitcase. And we leave. We're like, bye. See you later. The people who own this hotel, by the way, are friends with our dear friends who we normally stay with.
Oh, wow.
When we go up to Massachusetts, it's a mountain, set of mountains called the Berkshires, so we stay with them. So yeah. Anyway,
did they ever contact you guys?
No, because we actually, we cleaned it up. It was
okay. Looked pretty.
It was
good.
fine. It was legit.
Everything
was good, but I just ruined
the evening.
I just ruined the evening. I mean, we were laughing then.
Yeah,
it was still funny then.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that's the weirdest thing.
No, we'll just say,
but. Yeah,
I don't know. It's kind of weird.
There's a story for you.
There's a story. Perfect. So, what mythical creature would most improve the world if it existed?
Cell phone eating monster.
He's really hating cell phones.
I just think they really take us away from each other and take us away from ourselves. We don't have quiet moments anymore where we're just sitting and thinking unless we force ourselves to have them.
Yeah, you definitely have to.
people feel like they have to document everything all the time.
Like your food. I never understood that. There's two things I don't understand: taking pictures of your food when you go out to eat, and videotaping yourself when you work out. I think.
Oh wow, that's a thing.
Bro. Like people will be like, "Hey, videotape me while I do this squat," and then they videotape them and then post it on Facebook, doing a squat with an amount of weight that's really not that impressive, and everyone's just like, "All right, so you can squat. Good job." So,
I wanted to thank Justin Carter for joining us today. If you wanted to follow him, you can go to his party's website at MrSaturdayNight.com. That's Mr. spelled out M-I-S-T-E-R, so MrSaturdayNight.com. From there, you can find his party's Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. If you're in New York, I highly recommend you go check out their parties. They are a lot of fun. Justin also released his own music last year. You can find his album on Spotify, SoundCloud, and iTunes. If you search for Justin Carter, The Leaves Fall. If you're trying to support Reaching Out, head over to our Facebook page and click the like button and share the page with your friends. Also, go over to YouTube, iTunes, and SoundCloud to subscribe. You can rate us and leave comments so everyone can hear about the show and begin listening themselves. Thanks again for listening to Reaching Out with Zack Carter. I'm Zack Carter, and we'll see you next week.